So for that, Tim, I want you to come on up with that setup and have you share your words of wisdom and commit an act of free speech today.
Hey, thanks very much. Let's hear it for Glenn Morgan. One of the things that he did, which I can't stand when he does this stuff, is that he says, you know, I'm not important, I'm no big deal. Glenn Morgan is a huge deal, and we're so lucky to have him on our team. I had the great honor of doing a traveling road tour about a year or two ago, and we called it the, help me out, Full Contact Activism Tour that we did together. And we tag teamed it. We're speaking to various groups, and our goal was to try and inspire more people to get active and get politically active. And after about 8 stops and various speeches, we both realized that we were probably squelching an enormous amount of activism because we started talking about the kind of stuff that's happened to us. And we found it richly ironic that as we're telling stories about how we're being destroyed, and he has his own lawsuit that I'm going to talk about a little bit. But as all this stuff is happening, we're looking at all these people, and they kind of look white as a sheet and go, you know, yeah, it sounds like a great deal. Maybe we should do that too. Didn't inspire a lot with that. But it really was an amazing experience, and I had a chance to get to know Glenn. And the thing that I really admire about him is that he's a smart activist. He's not just a reckless activist. He thinks this stuff through. He understood the ramifications of what he was doing. No matter how provocative his posts were about how we were going to commit acts of free speech, he did his homework. He contacted attorneys. He had things lined up in the event that things went bad, but he didn't hide it from anybody. He shared it with the State Patrol. He shared it with the Inslee administration, with the Ferguson Attorney General's office, with all of them saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and I provoke you, and I invite you to arrest me if you think that I'm out of line. And I thought that smart approach is something that our side needs to learn more of, is that he knew he was on solid ground, but I know a lot of us feel like we're on solid ground, but he had the guts and the smarts to do it the right way, and he got them to back down before we even did it. So let's hear it for Glenn. I really admire Glenn. I just think we are so lucky to have him on our side. I don't know if many of you pick up his subtle humor that he uses quite often. One of my favorite stories that he talked about is that when he was in college, he would see that the other side was having a protest, where they were starving themselves, where they were on a fast, and he would have a barbecue right next to them at the same event in order to be able to illustrate the absurdity of the other side. And so there's something about Glenn, as with me, I think we're both acquired tastes, but I think that the humor is critical because we're in a pretty dark time right now. And if we can't use humor and a lot of dark humor, we're not going to make it through this thing. So let's hear it one more time for Glenn. Well, he did bring up my thing with the Attorney General, and I rarely have a chance to talk about it extensively because I'm usually doing something but on some kind of project. But, you know, we're talking about First Amendment, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. This Wednesday in Thurston County Superior Court, a judge is going to make a ruling. 8.5 years of my life has been devoted to this nonstop investigation, litigation, persecution against me, my family, my supporters, all the people that have helped me over the years, and it's reaching fruition where there will actually be a decision. And regardless of what that decision is, it's already a victory, because I don't believe that the Attorney General ever thought that I would make it that long, that at some point you would give up on me or I would give up and break and basically move to Idaho and sell real estate for a living or do something and walk away from it.
No way!
And I think it's a combination of masochism, stupidity, stubbornness, and just a belief that if they take me out, that who's going to be next. And so 8.5 years. It's hard for me to believe that we're reaching the point where there will actually be a decision. And on Wednesday, between 1:30 and 3:30 in Thurston County Superior Court, the judge is going to issue his decision. During the trial, the state said they wanted to be reasonable as far as the penalties are concerned. So the penalty they want is a $7.6 million fine. So reasonable. So reasonable. Glad they held back. And a lifetime ban on all future political activity. So I'm glad they're being so reasonable and not pushing the envelope too far. And so Wednesday of next week, we find out the decision on it. And like I said, I feel it's already a victory that because of thousands of people throughout the state that have donated to my legal defense fund, I was able to survive this. But in the process, they literally took everything I have. It looks like we're going to lose our house because it's the only way to be able to pay the lawyers. But I am just so grateful that so many people have helped me reach this stage where I'm actually able to get some kind of decision. And it's an amazing thing, and I just want to say thank you, everybody, for that.
What are the charges? What are the actual charges?
The thing about this that is always difficult is that the state, throughout their investigation, realized that the process itself is the punishment. That they can mirror your hard drive. They can depose you. I've been deposed like 5 times. They deposed my wife. They deposed supporters that had helped me over the years. And they would subpoena people and ask them for the last 10 years of emails between Tim Eyman and you. And the message was pretty clear that if you help me, you will pay a price for it. So stop helping him. And what it did was I found that more and more people were willing to help me because they saw this abuse of power and they saw the injustice of it. And they say to themselves, no matter what he did, is this an appropriate penalty to lose everything you've ever had, take away a guy's house, basically destroy his life? Because, as Glenn said, my original sin was being a conservative in the state of Washington and being effective at it. So the charges, I love the charges, allegations. For the last 8 years, for example, I asked people to help me and help me survive this thing. The Attorney General during the investigation found out that people were helping me. And they suddenly said that if Tim Eyman receives a check made payable to Tim Eyman or Tim Eyman Legal Defense Fund, that is a campaign contribution that needed to be reported.
Shame on them. That's sick.
Now, if you understand campaign finance law, you have to report all your contributions to a political campaign. And I'm not a political campaign. I am a person. I'm a human being. And so the state, in order to be able to bolster their argument that these are campaign contributions, came up with the novel theory that I am no longer a person. I am now a political action committee.
Shame on them.
Tim Eyman, personally, is a political action committee. It's the first time in human history a person would be considered a political action committee, but what does that mean? Normal human beings have no idea what that means. What's wrong with that? A political action committee has to report every dollar you receive and every dollar you spend, regardless of what it's for. So if I go to the grocery store, they think that that has to be on a campaign report. Money I spend on toilet paper, money I spend on car insurance, anything that I spend my money on has to go on a campaign report on a monthly basis. But it went further than that. If you're a political action committee, you can't use your campaign funds for personal use. So I would be prohibited from using my own money to spend money for me and my family to take care of them. How do you live like that? The point is you can't. It's simply impossible. So the very concept of how can Tim Eyman continue to exercise free speech, be active politically, and yet literally can't spend his own money to take care of himself is an absurd position. But he nonetheless, the AG said, Mr. Eyman in the last 6 years has collected $766,000 in quote-unquote campaign contributions that he never reported. And this particular judge bought that line of crap and ended up ruling that way about 6 months ago. And so the headlines you read about Tim Eyman taking campaign money for personal use, you have to ask yourself the question, is a check made payable to Tim Eyman or Tim Eyman Legal Defense Fund, is that a campaign contribution? Was it okay for him to use his own money to take care of himself? You're going to have to forgive me. It's hard not for me to talk about this because it's been such a central aspect of my life for 8.5 years, and to know that I'm on the verge of maybe this is the last act of free speech that I'm allowed to give, I'm going to take this moment and talk about it a little bit, because it's 8.5 years of anger and frustration that when you're represented by an attorney, you can't talk about it. The one aspect that also happened throughout this is that about 2 years ago, I had to file for bankruptcy because the amount of costs associated with this thing got so bad that I ended up going, I just can't keep up with this. That didn't stop the litigation. It kept going. And so they eventually, the Attorney General managed to bully my lawyer off the case. And I went to the judge and I said, Judge, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an attorney. I can't possibly defend myself. I have no idea what I'm doing. I want to default. I want to give up. Let's just simply decide now how much the penalty is going to be, because I just can't defend myself. And this judge said, no, I'm not going to let you give up. You have to keep going. So I was forced to represent myself for about 9 months. Now, I went to Washington State University. Go Cougs! Great business education, but it doesn't teach you a lot about being in a courtroom. And so I ended up losing motion after motion after motion throughout this entire ordeal. During that 8 months, they just buried me, and I was literally not able to keep up with it. But eventually, former Justice Richard Sanders agreed to take my case. And he's been defending me for close to a year now, and he had to spend 8 months just getting through all the discovery requests that the state had hit me with. It literally cost $400,000 or $500,000 for him to do that, and I still owe him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's what the only way I'm going to be able to pay him is for them to take my home as a result of it. And so I'm just enormously grateful for Richard that he didn't just walk away from the fight. He stuck with it and was willing to get me to the point where I actually get a decision on Wednesday. I went much longer than I expected to go today. I'm sorry about that, but I just want you to know that I am just so grateful to all of you for being with me throughout this entire fight. It's been 8.5 years. Let me let you know a little secret. You know, regardless of what the decision is, the Attorney General will find it inadequate and will end up appealing it. So this will go on for years longer. And so the thing that I'm most proud of throughout this entire 8 years during this thing as it's been going on is I think Ferguson wanted me at some point to just stop trying, just to give up. And the thing that made me so happy and proud is that I basically took the advice of Glenn Morgan and say, you need to become a super activist. You need to show that this has only inspired you to do more. So I've been doing initiatives, and you've been passing them. $30 tabs, anybody?
Yeah. 3 times we voted.
Admittedly, a very confusing initiative. Very, very confusing. 9 justices on the Supreme Court said it was too confusing for voters. I ran for governor. Probably wouldn't have run for governor if not for that lawsuit. That lawsuit inspired me to work even harder because I knew that Ferguson would want me to stop, to just slow down. And I wanted to kick it into overdrive and say, all you're doing is inspire me to do even more. And so they're sending out attack dogs. God, the other side has learned a lot from history on what those dogs can do at free speech rallies. So anyway, I'll close with that. One more time, we would not be here today if not for Glenn Morgan. Let's hear it one more time for Glenn. We'll turn it over to everybody else again Wednesday. I just want to thank you all for your prayers, for all your support over the years. I know I would never have made it without any of you. I'm just incredibly grateful to all of you for helping me over the years, and I'm going to keep, as long as there's air in my lungs and energy in my muscles, I'm going to continue to be an activist in the state of Washington. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You can go to the hearing. It's going to be at Thurston County Courthouse where the Constitution goes to die. And I would encourage you to go to the hearing, and I know I'll probably be there as well. I've been at a number of his hearings in the past. And one thing I want to point out in Tim's case that's kind of interesting, before I hand it off to the next person, we have campaign finance laws in Washington State. Campaign finance laws are written mainly to suppress your ability to participate in free speech. Everybody likes them because they like the idea of transparency in the political process. So do I. But what happens is they're primarily used to protect political insiders and to punish political newcomers. And the campaign finance laws in the state are written in a way that is pretty much impossible for most people to comply. And I discovered this myself, despite actually teaching classes on it for a while, in 2016. And when they filed a PDC complaint against me, Public Disclosure Commission, that's the agency that enforces it, I finally went and really did my homework on it, and I started filing PDC complaints myself on the other side, because I found out that on the conservative freedom side, we had just tried to hunker down and survive the assault of complaints or the process that the Attorney General had been using to harass people. And so proportionally, I filed 620 PDC complaints against the majority of the elected officials in the state and the PACs and the unions and judges and all my friends on the other side. In fact, Senator Sam Hunt, who I mentioned earlier, who likes to mute people with testimony, he wrote a letter to the PDC and said, clearly Glenn Morgan's ignorant about the campaign finance laws in the state, after I filed the first complaint on him. And I thought, you know, he's probably right. So I went and did my homework, and the next one caused the Attorney General, it triggered a litigation against Sam Hunt, and Senator Hunt had to pay a fine. Fortunately, after I got enough of the politicians to pay fines and forced the Attorney General to file 19 lawsuits against his friends, they decided that it was time to change the campaign finance laws in Washington State. So they put a bill in 2018 called the Stop Glenn Morgan Bill, and that's what it was nicknamed. I remember that. And so they had to change some of the rules. They're still not great, but they're a little less delusional than they were before. And so the heavy hand that has come down on Tim Eyman is going to be a little bit harder to apply to the next person based on the changes that they made there. But that was a good example, actually. Good activism, exposing the truth. I still file complaints just for the fun of it. My fun, not so much for the people I file them on. How much does it cost? And it's the other side spent about $600,000 in payments and fines. I don't know how much in attorney fees. Nobody can figure that out. And the Attorney General and actually the PDC had to hire a lot more employees. So I accidentally grew government a little bit bigger than I had wanted to. And but nevertheless, I think that's just an example of activism. I want to talk about one more person who should come up and speak next. And Doug Bassler, I know you're here. Now, as Doug's coming up here, if Doug had not recorded what the State Patrol and the Enterprise Services had said here, had not gotten the video to me, I don't think I would have organized this event today. And I want to tell you something about Doug Bassler. One of the reasons why I love this guy is that I remember he got arrested for preaching the gospel down in downtown Portland in 1998, right? And what I love about it is they dragged him off the car, handcuffed him, and threw him in the squad car, and he fought it. And he went to court, and he prevailed. And immediately, he left that courtroom and went right back down to Portland and started doing the exact same thing just a few minutes later. On the same corner, same exact location. And I only say that because you shouldn't have to be arrested to practice our freedom and our free speech. You shouldn't have to. But you can't let that intimidate you. And you do the right thing. I mean, if they're going to arrest you, then go and deal with it and then come right back out. You do not let that intimidate you from being here and being in places like that. And with that, I just want, Doug, I know you probably have a couple other things you want to say here. And but thank you so much for giving me the evidence and the motivation to get back out here. All right.
Wow. So I usually like to start with a joke, so I have a new one. What's the difference between a progressive and a U.S. savings bond? A U.S. savings bond eventually will mature and make money. Any rate, April 26th this year, a few weeks into the lockdown, they closed our churches. And I got up on April 26th, and I heard the Lord say, you're going to have street church today. And I hadn't had street church for years. But I had a PA, a generator, a guitar, and a ton of attitude. And so I went down to Point Ruston in Tacoma, and we had church. And people were crying, and people were saying, we miss church, and we miss Jesus, and all this stuff. My mother-in-law is locked up in a rest home. They're killing her. They won't let her out. They won't let people in. We can't go see her. We got her out this week for a few days, and she's getting frail, and we're just like, Mr. Inslee, tear down this wall. I've just been wanting to say that. Any rate, so we started doing street church. Immediately, the cops came, and they started to harass us, and I went, my team's not ready. And so I found a group of, a list of court cases that support us in our free speech rights, which apply to freedom of religion, like Glenn said earlier, as well as the free speech stuff. So I started to just confront the cops and say, you're wrong, and we have the right to be here. And they said, oh, you have to have a permit. But I said, but you're not giving permits. And I showed them the court case. Sayyev versus New York, 1952. Permits are not allowed by the U.S. Supreme Court to put a prior restraint on free speech. And pretty soon, I get a call from the Tacoma Police Department and says, anybody bothered to talk to you? I go, no. He goes, well, let's have a conversation. The end of the conversation, he said, I am not enforcing park regulations over your First Amendment right. I don't care if you have a 100-piece rock band down there. And so when and Marty McClendon, you guys know Marty, we set up, and Carrie French, just the three of us, we set up a couple of speakers and a generator and a little pop-up right over there 3 weeks ago. Tommy Malas from Enterprise Services came over, and I said, no, you're wrong. And I got my phone out and I started recording. We gotta be ready to go toe to toe. Then I said, well, look, if you're gonna threaten us with arrest, see, if they threaten you with arrest, you don't have to get arrested. You can sue them. And they cannot hide behind their office. If they violate your civil rights, they have no qualified immunity. They are personally responsible. And so then they said, well, you can go over there. So we went over there on the other side of that fountain and set everything up for our radio show, our table, our equipment, our microphones. We got everything set up, and they came and said, oh, no, this is private property. You can't do it here either. I'm like, you bastards. I mean that in the Christian way, okay? So I'm just saying, look, it's harassment. So I called Pacific Justice Institute, and they had already offered to defend us. And they were saying, we will come, we will defend you. And I said, okay, how much is this going to cost? They go, sir, we will charge you $1. So I want everybody to go to pji.org and give them money, because that's what they do. They defend us if we're willing to fight. As soon as I call them, they go, oh, we're so glad you called. We're very concerned about lack of access in Olympia. They immediately got happy. Write out a report, send them the videos. So they did the investigation. They came back and said the law against structures has to do with camping. And there's case law in Washington State that says you have to prove they're going to camp. Anybody want to camp under that speaker right there? Anybody been camping in Washington in the winter? I need more than that. I like my travel trailer. Thank you very much. So any rate, contacted Glenn. I think you put all of that list of rights are on wethegovern.com. Look, he's right. We have to fight now. So I hope, if you've got a PA, get it over here, put it on the ground. Let's keep going. They said they suspended this indefinitely, but if next week somebody comes down here and they pull the same crap on them, let us know. Get a hold of Glenn, get a hold of me or whatever, and we will immediately sue them. PJI is ready to sue them right now. Right now. So God bless you guys for coming out.
Wait a minute. On what grounds were they trying to deny it?
The specific grounds, that's a good question. So specifically, there were 2 WACs that they were using, and I have them on my website. I don't know if I have them totally memorized. I think it was WAC 200-220-235, right? And specifically, it had to do with camping. And there is federal case law that say you can't have camping overnight as part of a protest. And that's probably a good idea in this city, because if you look on the other side of the lake, they do like building big toxic waste campgrounds, and that it really looks more like a landfill over there, and that's probably closer to resembling that. And understandably, the people who manage the Capitol here would prefer not to have it look that way out here. So that's an understandable desire. What it was is it's being misused and misapplied. And the truth is, normally, it's been fairly easy. Going back 100 years, it's been generally pretty easy here to get a permit because it was you just called up and said, hey, I want to do an event at the Capitol. And all the reason the permits primarily exist here so that if there was already a group over there, they could just tell you that there's already a group there. Why don't you move your event here or on that lawn or on that lawn or on that lawn? You know, they would just give different locations. But unique in state history, for the first time in our existence, Governor Inslee decided to shut down the entire state and declare a bizarre emergency that has never ended. Remember 2 weeks? And so it's never ended. And because of that, they were not allowing them to issue permits. And that's really where they got into this situation where it no longer made logical sense. Now, neither does much of bureaucracy. And a bureaucrat's rarely capable of thinking logically. They just simply go through whatever's, on their plate. And that was what they were doing it, and then they got away with it because the first people folded, and then it kind of goes, and they just get used to misapplying the law. So again, our rights exist to the extent that we're willing to exercise them. They will not automatically exist otherwise. We have to be willing to exercise them. So I think that's important to remember. Now, I oftentimes have been focused on exposing corruption in government, and I say many times that there's a mountain of corruption concealed by an ocean of incompetence. That's how corruption exists in government. Incompetence is a feature, not a bug, of big government. And so it's something just always to remember, but not everybody in government is, always trying to be corrupt. There's a lot of good people there that come to me as whistleblowers. There's a lot of, in fact, almost every agency right now has somebody there that'll tell me some things that are going on internally. They know when things are wrong. They're willing to come forward. And the truth is, not everybody in elected to office is terrible. Not every single person is incompetent or bad and destructive to our free speech rights, as somebody like, say, Senator Sam Hunt. And we do have some good people representing us in the legislature, people who are willing to stand up for our rights and for our freedoms, and who recognize and who voted against the rules that this legislature is operating under right now. And one of those people, I would like to have him come up here and speak to you briefly, is Representative Jim Walsh from the 19th Legislative District. Truly standing up for our freedoms every day in a legislature where freedoms are often ignored.
Thank you, Glenn. Well, welcome everybody on this beautiful Washington day. Again, let's give it up for Glenn Morgan, who set this up and is a tireless champion for you and your constitutional rights. The right of petition and of the people peaceably to assemble for the common good shall never be abridged. That's Article 1, Section 4 of our state's Constitution. Our state's Constitution is a brilliant document. Immediately after that part comes Section 5, which says every person may freely speak, write, and publish on any subject. Our state's Constitution takes some of the points that our nation's Constitution makes and extends them, gives you even greater clearer, stronger rights than the federal Constitution does. And remember always, in our state's Constitution, the Bill of Rights is Article 1. It comes right at the start of the document. And to me, that's greatly important. Now why is freedom of speech so important? Why? Because of these fences. It's with speech. It's with words and logic and argument and clarity that we make tyranny fold. It's what we have to do, and we always have to do it. It's a constant battle. Long before these puny gates were put up, grasping would-be tyrants have been using crises and emergencies to grab power for as long as humans have been around. Go back in time. Go back to the classics. In the Roman Empire, the Gracchi brothers staged a fake coup so that they'd have the reason to have armed bodyguards that gave them a small army inside the walls of the city of Rome. And you've heard the term, they've crossed the Rubicon. That means they've gone so far, you can't back up. Well, crossing the Rubicon comes from Julius Caesar. He was the general of the Roman army, and in those times there were laws that army couldn't come into the city to prevent a military coup. And under the guise of a supposed emergency, Julius Caesar brought the Roman army into the city of Rome and effectively took control of that country and empire. A little further ahead in time, kept closer to our day, in the 1930s in Germany, they had what was called the Reichstag fire. The Reichstag is their parliament building. And a group started a fire, attacked the building, and there was a great political brouhaha after the fire over who'd caused it. Now, some bad guys said it was anarchists, kind of similar to the Antifa that we have today. But the anarchists said it was the other guys, a gang of right-wingers who eventually took control. But whatever the matter, they used that fire in their parliament building as the excuse to consolidate power and exert control over the people. And the people, well-meaning people, decent people in many cases, went along with it. Why? Because it was an emergency. We have to be careful of these emergencies. It's how tyrants gather power. And our great shield, our great weapon against that grabbing power, well, it isn't a knife and it isn't a gun. Our great power against that tyranny is words, it's speech, it's truth. And we have to be able to speak the truth to combat tyranny. That's our greatest weapon. And the truth is, as we're seeing all around this state, the crisis over COVID-19, which is a real virus, which does cause real sickness, has been overstated. And as even health departments in our counties around the state are saying now, this governor's administration's response to COVID is not based on science, it's not based on fact, and it's not based on equity. It's based on consolidating power. And we must press back against that. So cling to your free speech in the rain, in the sun, wherever. Cling to your free speech. Stand for your right to freely speak, to freely write, and publish on social media, in old-fashioned media. Don't stand for those who would take away your voice because they are up to no good. They want to put up fences. They want to restrict your access to your government. They want to limit your freedom and your liberty and your independence. This country and this state were born on resisting that tyranny. It's your legacy. It's your inheritance. Protect it, remember it, and stand strong for your freedom and your liberty in this free state of Washington and this free nation of the United States. God bless you all. Keep talking.
All right. Thank you, Representative Walsh. You see why I enjoy having legislators like that in Olympia. So with the restoration of the liquid sunshine that we have in Washington State, I just wanted to let everybody know we're going to start to wrap this up. Brevity is the soul of wit, and actually brevity would make a lot of our rallies be a little bit more popular if they don't drag on forever. So I just want to, in closing, just give it just a little summary of something I think that we need to pay attention to. I mentioned earlier that we cannot outsource our freedoms to other groups and expect that somehow they're going to represent us and protect us or save us or do what needs to be done to ensure that we don't just lose our freedoms, but that we restore those that are being taken away. Too often, I think we obsess about what happens 3,000 miles away and pay almost no attention to what happens down the street where we live. And yet the truth is, 80% of our lives, if not more, is dramatically affected more significantly by what occurs in, the city of Olympia or in this building behind me in Washington, in the state capitol. What happens in your school district, what happens in your local government matters a lot more. If the city of Olympia decides they're going to defund the police and take away 50% of their law enforcement here, how much is that going to affect you if you live in the city of Olympia? Quite dramatically. If the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. falls in on itself, are you even going to notice? Most of us back here probably won't. It's 3,000 miles away. It doesn't affect our day-to-day lives. But yet, we obsess and we spend a phenomenal amount of time and energy writing and obsessing about what's going on in D.C. and almost no time paying attention to what's happening in our community where we live. And yet that's where our freedoms and our life and the impact on our children and our future is being eroded. And I encourage, as I have now for many years, and I just want to continue this, think about what you can do to make an impact locally. There's a saying that the environmental movement has used for many years. It's very good because it applies to activism. Think globally and act locally. I want to think globally about freedom and liberty, and I want to act locally to implement it. I want to act locally in my city council, in my county commission, in the port, here in Olympia, where we should have more access than what we have now. And I think that that's the important thing to remember, ensuring that we retain our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly, requires us to be eternally vigilant. You don't always have to dress up like Thomas Paine, which I want to point that out here. Yeah, good job. But it is important that we are willing to stand up and do what we need to do and be wise about it. Work together with other people that you trust. Don't outsource it to somebody else. Find little victories that you can have. Today was a victory. Today was a victory, guys. It really was. But I don't want to go home and just forget about it, right? We're going to be moving forward. You're going to be doing a lot more. And so I just want to encourage everybody. Again, I do have a website, wethegovern.com, if you want to see what's going on there, at least until they decide to take that away. And I still have a YouTube channel, We the Govern, as well. And as of last night, Facebook even restored my Facebook page, which is kind of funny. So we know that there's censorship afoot. If I was to say anything else, I would certainly like the Attorney General's office to require all of the people over there to go back to law school. and perhaps read the Constitution again, or at least get a daily primer on it. I think we'd be better off. But at this point in time, it takes activities, sometimes small events and activities like this, to remind us of our freedoms and the need to stand up for them. And so for that, I'm going to kind of officially close this out in the nice weather that we do have. Get to know some of the people around you. If they're from communities that you live in, see what other things you can do to have a victory for free speech and freedom, and move that ball forward and fight for that battle in our future.
When's the next one?
Well, right now I'll be posting anything that I'm doing like this online, but I'm going to tell you that rallies are not what change. So it's being active and engaged as activists locally. I think you can make a lot of gains in that process. So with that, guys, thank you so much for coming out today in such wonderful weather. And I want to also thank Doug Bassler donated some of this equipment, which we thought might get seized today. So I want to thank him for doing that. Also, a friend of mine donated that generator, recognizing it might be seized. And I want to thank the many attorneys who were eager and lined up to represent me if I got arrested. I would have enjoyed, actually, to be honest, I would have kind of enjoyed writing from a jail cell in Thurston County. That would have been fun. I've been a big critic, and so it'd be kind of fun to write from the inside. So, but for that's not what happened, and this is a victory. And with that, please enjoy the rest of the day, and we will see you next time. So, thank you so much.
Thomas Paine. I did. I got it, but I got to get a picture of it.
See all your press all over.
Pictures of me.
I
can't live
So good looking.
How many Antifa were behind you? How many Antifa were behind you? You weren't by yourself, because I showed up by myself and got beat up. Why is that? So why do you show up to our events and you don't get beat up, but I do? I'm just curious. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. When you show up with a group of people, and there's another group of people that are on the opposite side, that's mutual combat. That's not you getting beat up. You've never been singled up. You've never been beat up. You're not welcome at our event. You're not welcome at our event. You're going to fucking misconstrue everything and twist it. See you? We already know what you're going to do. So why are you here? To misconstrue everything. Yeah, just as I am, but I'm beat up. Why is that? Yeah, shrug your fucking shoulders. Shrug your shoulders. I'm going to follow you around. You're going to get harassed.
What a good turn.
Yeah, okay.
You see you're saying that?
I think it should be fucking mutual, honestly. I think it should be mutual. So I'm just going to harass you. That's what you guys do.
Listen. If you have nothing better to do.
Listen, that's all right. That's who that is.
Straight in there.
Back in 2016, he was walking with slogans to resist. Yeah, I will. You will, definitely.
I'll see you around, Gina.
Another bad
You can take pictures of me if you show your face, buddy.
Prepared to be arrested.
How you doing, man?
Good, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm not Antifa, man. I'm not Antifa, dude. I'm not. I was literally in the Capitol when shit went down.
Nice. I'm Tom, by the way.
You go by Doc Holliday, right?
Well, that's not what I go by. I'm Tom Howie.
Tom
but
Howie, okay.
Some people on the internet started calling me Doc Holliday,
Okay.
so
Yeah, I already have my face covered, so I don't get doxxed, that's why.
I totally respect that. I just hope you understand where I'm coming from. I never hide my face, so I don't. It feels kind of weird for me to have people taking my pictures when they're not showing
No,
their
it's
face.
no, it's okay. I completely.
Yeah.
I've run into those people as well.
I got a policy. Nobody takes pictures of me unless they show their face to me.
Oh, yeah, here. On time for you.
I'm Tom.
I know who you are, brother. Here.
Okay.
I was down here on the 11th when everything happened. I was down here on the 6th. I was down here at the rotunda when they were throwing rocks and balloons with you. I've been down here at the stop still guys.
Nice, nice.
So, do you mind telling us a little bit? I mean, everybody, that was witness what happened on the 11th. Do you want to let us know what happened? What were you called? And I was very
Okay. I will snake the freaking. Let me see what's going on down by the road. Let's see what's going on. Oh, looks like there's some state troopers down there, I think. What's going on down here? Ah, lordy. Okay. Yeah, it looks just fine. Yeah, would be the first time someone accused me of being Antifa. Of course, I was really out of freaking Proud Boy Valley without getting into any trouble, so I'm pretty sure I'm not Antifa. I mean, I've also been literally covering almost everything in Washington since the lockdowns happened. Or tried to. I haven't gotten everything, but gotten a few things. Just coming back around. Yep, state troopers. Any live streamers? Nope. Oh, I don't think I'll get that. Yeah, just flag wavers. Okay. Seems Gucci Mama. Hey. Wait, let's go back to where everybody was. Oh gosh, try to get my mask back on. Snake. Yeah, looks like someone, I don't know if he's heckling the police or not. I don't know what he's doing. Yeah, but
He knows exactly. This
people.
Keep an eye.
Yeah, I wonder what the heck is going on. Not a whole lot really going on. Well, nothing. Alright, nothing's going on, so I'm gonna stop the live stream. Alright, well, nothing's really happening right now except people talking to each other. I'm gonna be signing off, so if you don't mind, donate to me on my Venmo and my Cash App. That'd be really appreciated. Or even my PayPal. They're literally in the descriptions on my website. So hit me up. Peace.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Do you know who these guys are? The green and the yellow around the band?
Honestly.